Efteling's Fairytale Forest is what put the park on the map as a large theme park and a must place to visit. And because you asked for it, today we're going to talk about the Fairytale Forest and its 30 fairy tales. Hi, I'm Luz, and right now I'm going to take you back to 1951, the beginning. The idea for the Fairytale Forest came in 1951, when filmmaker Peter Rangers contacted famous illustrator Anton Pieck to ask if he could design a fairytale forest for the park. Pieck initially said no, but after some convincing, he designed 10 fairy tales for the forest, thinking that this project would fail. But nothing proved further from the truth. The Fairytale Forest was a huge success, and as the years passed, Pieck continued designing and adding fairy tales for the forest. He designed every one of these fairy tales until 1975, when he retired and his work was taken over by Ton van de Ven. Each of the fairy tales has a fairy tale book near it, where you can find a summary of the fairy tale it depicts in 4 languages: Dutch, French, German, and English. 1952. In 1952, only 8 out of the 10 initial fairy tales had opened. The first we're going to talk about is Sleeping Beauty, which is the first one that we can find on the route. This fairy tale has been renovated several times since it opened, so the scenes have changed and become better through the years. We first see a castle surrounded by trees, and when we climb up the stairs to get to the castle, we find a sleeping guard just across a stream that flows down the stairs. The castle has 3 rooms. First, we see Sleeping Beauty's bedroom, where the princess is seen sleeping and holding a handkerchief with a drop of blood on her hand. You can see her breathing, because her chest moves up and down. In the next room, the evil fairy can be seen as an old woman, wrapped in rags. She is sitting behind the spinning wheel, where the cook and his apprentice are also sleeping, and you can hear them snoring loudly nearby. The next fairy tale is called The 6 Servants, which tells the story of a prince who manages to win the hand of a princess with the help of 6 servants, each with a special gift. One of these servants was Longneck, who is the one depicted in this area. In the story, he has a neck so long that he can see everything in the world. The neck is almost 5 meters long, and his head moves from side to side, looking over the fairytale forest. In front of Longneck, we can also find the building with benches that has images of each one of the 6 servants. If you're enjoying this video, please leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. And also tell us what other theme parks do you want us to cover. Next is The Naughty Princess, which tells the story of a princess that was turned into a parrot after finding a witch and repeating every word that the witch said to her. This is one of the most simple fairy tale depictions, but it is also interactive. You can see the parrot standing on a branch near a brick wall. While the parrot doesn't move at all, you can go near it and see a sign that says "Speak as long as the eye is red." And if you do, the parrot will repeat everything you say back to you a few seconds later. This next fairy tale was moved from its original place. When it first opened, the Chinese Nightingale was depicted as a bird standing on a branch near a wall where people could see dragons. There were also 10 flowers in a wall in front of it, and every 5 minutes, the nightingale sang and the flowers opened. We won't talk about this fairy tale more right now, because it had a major change several years later. The Frau Holle fairy tale also opened this year and evolved later. When it first opened, the story was told in a well using a slideshow inside. It tells the story of 2 sisters who fall into a well and end up in a wonderful world where the good daughter is rewarded and the lazy daughter is punished by Frau Holle, who is also known for creating snow by shaking the feathers from her pillow. In 2006, the area was updated, and Frau Holle was added to the cottage near the well where guests call her. Where guests can call her and she opens her window, peeks out and asks, "Shall I make it snow?" Then she shakes her pillow and snow foam sprays out of the house before she goes back inside again. Now, as we've said in previous videos, the forest has 2 types of fairy tales: the ones that tell a story and the fairy tale characters who appear alone. These last ones are well-known mythological creatures that don't have a specific story attached to them. And Wee Walter Messenger was the first of these ones to appear in the forest. He is a gnome who has mischievous eyes and a broad smile, and his hand moves, pointing the way towards the bathroom. While he did not come from a particular story, he was given one after he appeared in the forest. Snow White is another one of those fairy tales that has been majorly renovated through the years. Nowadays, it is divided into 2 parts. The first is the Wicked Stepmother's Castle, where you can find several paintings, and more importantly, the magic mirror. The mirror comes alive and begins telling the story. You can see the evil queen in the mirror, when suddenly the atmosphere changes and she turns into an old hag. The next part is Snow White's cave. The cave is located beneath the ruins of a crumbling castle, and inside the cave we find 5 windows showing Snow White lying on her coffin, poisoned by the apple and surrounded by the 7 dwarfs. They all move a little bit. The background shows the dwarf's cottage, illuminated during the day like a house in a dark forest and by moonlight in the evening. This scene is seriously beautiful. Next, we see the Frog King. This fairy tale tells the story of a prince who is enchanted into a frog and has to win the heart of a princess to change back. The fairy tale is depicted as a beautiful fountain. You can see it in the middle of Herald Square. Although there is only one frog in the fairy tale, here 4 frogs can be seen, each on a corner of the water bowl. The frogs each shoot a jet of water at the center of the tank, where a gold-colored ball is held in the air on jets of water sprouting upwards. This happens for a few seconds, after which all the water stops, only to start again a little later. Another fairy tale located in Herald Square is the Magic Clock. It tells the story of a wizard who wants to sell a magical clock to 6 princes who want to pay 1 bag of gold for it instead of the 3 that the wizard is asking. The princes steal the clock, and when the wizard discovers this, he casts a spell on them. This fairy tale is depicted as a round clock tower that every 15 minutes has a show where 8 small knight figures ride around the tower. The 6 princes stand along the walls of the clock tower, and every 15 minutes they turn and sound their trumpets. 1953. The next round of fairy tales opened in 1953, and it brought one of the most iconic characters to the park, Little Red Riding Hood. It first opened in a form of a figurine of a flower-picking Little Red Riding Hood. Her basket was next to her and the wolf watched from behind the tree. But it was redone, and nowadays you can find Grandma's cottage. Outside of the cottage, you see Little Red Riding Hood, knocking the door, not knowing what she will find inside. And if you look inside through the windows, you can see the wolf wearing Grandma's clothes and lying on her bed waiting for Little Red Riding Hood to come in. Little Red Riding Hood became one of the most iconic characters of the parks, just like Longneck. Another fairy tale that opened in 1953 was The Red Shoes. And you might think that this fairy tale looks very simple when you arrive and see the pair of red shoes on top of a glass panel. But this is far from the truth. The 2 little red shoes, without any visible mechanism, dance by themselves on a checkered glass dance floor. On the wall under the roof is a painting in which the main character, Karen, dances in a yellow dress. This tells the story of a girl that has to constantly dance on these red shoes as a punishment because she was disobedient. 1955. The next fairy tale was opened in 1955, and it was the classic Hansel and Gretel. This one's beautiful. You get to see the witch's candy house. The roof is made of pancakes, and the white walls are decorated with candy hearts, candies, and pretzels. There are 2 lemonade fountains in the garden, and there are pies and puddings on the garden walls. But don't be fooled by all this sweetness, because whenever you rattle the door handle of the garden gate, the bird on the roof whistles. A black cat sticks its head out of a small round window, and then the shutter in front of the window in the front door slides open. We then see the witch's face rocking back and forth, and she calls out in a crackling voice, "Who's nibbling at my little house?" If you move a little more, you will see that Hansel and Gretel are also there. Hansel is seen inside a cage, with an oven near him already heated up so the witch can prepare her meal. Gretel is seen sitting on the floor looking worried for her brother and looking for a way to let him out. 1956. In 1956, Donkey Lift Your Tail opened. This is a fairy tale about 3 sons who each receive a magical gift, but an innkeeper steals the gift of 2 of them, so the third one recovers them with his bat. The fairy tale opened in different parts. The first was the donkey, which opened in 1956, and it's the best part of this depiction. You see the donkey in the middle of the square, and it is an interactive figure that moves its jaw and tail. But the best part is that if you insert the coin and pay a fee, you can activate it, and the donkey will throw a gold-colored coin out of its butt. This is such a fun interaction. The next part opened in 1999. This is a beautiful inn where guests can enter and watch the show that tells the story. You can see the magical scene with several characters like the second tailor's son, a dog, and a Peking innkeeper, creating an immersive experience. 1957. The opening of this fairy tale is controversial because most people say that it opened in 1957, but there are some reports that it was opened in 1952. In this video, we'll stick with the 1957 story, and you'll see why in a little bit. This is not the only controversial thing about Guiniver's bridal gown, which is the fairy tale that we're talking about now. You see, this is the only fairy tale that does not consist of a stage scene or an indoor show, but of living animals. This is the story of a prince that wanted a blind weaver to create his bride's wedding dress. A wise owl enlisted the help of the weaver's pigeons to guide the weaver in making the dress by describing the colors. With their help, the dress was made, pleasing the prince, who believed that it would make Guinevere the most beautiful princess in the country. The bird's feathers became colored after they helped create the dress. So, the fairy tale consisted of pigeons that were dyed different colors. These birds first appeared in 1952. but it wasn't until 1957 that a larger dovecote was placed for the birds to spend the night. The dyeing of the birds was very problematic, and after several complaints, Efteling stopped dyeing them in 2018. There was some time where Efteling started giving people glasses with color lenses so they could see the birds with different colors, but this was also stopped. 1958. The Flying Fakir opened in 1958, and over the years several stories were written for this scene. Since the 1970s, it has been the fairy tale The Gardener and the Fakir, and it tells the story of a sick sultan who can only get better if his gardener, with the help of a fakir, manages to give him a tulip. The palace features 2 white towers with red roofs and golden spires. It also has a garden with tulip beds and a gold fountain. When the show starts, you can see the fakir animatronic playing a flute, and when he starts playing, the tulips bloom, in one side red and the other yellow. When he stops, the shutters of the window in the bottom of the tower close, and the fakir appears on a flying carpet at the top of the tower. The fakir flies from one tower to the other and the show begins again. 1966. This is one of our favorite fairy tales in the forest. The Indian water lilies opened in 1966 as the largest attraction that Efteling had built up to that point. It tells the story of a witch in a jungle who is so jealous of the beauty of the star children dancing on a lake in the moonlight that she enchants them and turns them into water lilies. The show is situated inside a cave where we see a jungle with a waterfall, a palace, and a beautiful pond with 7 large lilies. The narration starts, and we see a witch appear to the right. She begins to sing, and a 4-piece frog orchestra emerges from the bushes next to her. The lilies open up and show 7 elegant fairies. There's also a chorus of 3 geese that add to the music. Everyone is dancing to the music and making a beautiful scene. Then, when it seems to be daylight again, the lilies close and the geese and frog disappear into the undergrowth. The witch sings a few more notes and then she also disappears. It has indeed become light again, and the waterfall starts flowing again. The music, atmosphere, and animatronics makes this fairy tale one of the best ones in all the forest. The Fairytale Forest is a beautiful experience for everyone who is lucky to visit. But there is so much more to discover, and that's why part 2 is coming very soon.